traveling. The card packs, or you can play with the board.
So that's an investment of, I don't know, I'm guessing about $20, $25. I don't know how much the game costs, but to me, it can be an investment on your future.
The ABC actually has it, Potomac Evans Book Center, because I saw it, just saw it in there.
It's called
UN, the UN game. It's in the children's section at Potomac Book Center.
The board game?
Yeah,
Great.
I saw it. I don't know what card packs, you may have to get the separate card packs if you want to get a whole bunch of different ones online, but they do have the board.
And the board game, I know it has 3 sets. One of them is lighthearted, the other one spiritual beliefs, and I believe the other one's a family pack. And then you can order the other packs that has to do with couples or for younger kids or whatever. All right, so that's something that we encourage you to begin to practice, and it's good communication skills. Yet, at some point in time, we get into conflict, and we said earlier that conflict is not bad. All of us have conflict at one time or another with somebody. Anyone who can say to me, you know, we've never had conflict. I've been married for 35 years. We've never had any conflict. You know, I would say, well, why don't you move in together? You know, you're married all this time and you haven't been living together. Come on. You have to have conflict. And conflict doesn't mean that you fight and argue. It means that you have disagreements, and sometimes those disagreements are difficult to resolve. I'm going to show you an example of one that's a little challenging. Not this, never go to bed angry, stay out and plot your revenge. But hopefully, if it plays properly, here's a way to not resolve conflict. Let me get to this.
Excuse me. I know you didn't want to catch you. You just slammed your door in my car. The least you can do is say you're sorry, lady. Don't say that, Tom. Not like I'm ready to reset that. I'm sorry. See? Like that. Oh.
Angry driver. She's got an older car too. Oh my gosh.
That's certainly not a way to resolve conflict, right? So what we would like to suggest is something that has been used widely, and it's a 10-step to resolving conflict. Remember this text from Proverbs chapter 15, verse 17, better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted calf with hatred. Or Proverbs 17:1, which says, better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife. Who wants to live in a house where there's conflict all the time? We want to resolve it instead of dealing with it forever and ever. So in trying to resolve your conflicts, agree to never threaten divorce, by the way. It's very difficult to try to resolve conflict when you're always hearing, I think I'm just going to get a divorce. So agree to never threaten divorce. Agree to never confront in public. Remember Michal and David? Don't confront in public. Agree to never nag. Don't go on and on and on and on like a dripping faucet. Never verbally attack. You're so stupid, you're dumb, I can't believe you did this, that, and the other. Never resurrect the past. That's important. Don't start bringing stuff from the past. Remember the two men that met after they hadn't seen each other in many years? One said to the other after a while, you know, I have a great family, I love my wife. The only thing is that when we get into an argument, she gets historical. And the other guy said, you mean hysterical? I said, no, historical. She tells me everything that I ever did. So don't start bringing things from the past. Instead, agree to always ask permission to address the conflict. Always invite God to be part of your discussion. Always admit when you're wrong. Always listen. That's what we've been building to this point. Whoops, always listen. Oh, there's more, I guess. We'll go on to the next one. Always keep your arguments out of the bedroom. If you always argue in your bedroom, you may actually begin to experience some sexual difficulties because you associate the conflict with the bedroom, and therefore you can't concentrate on actually enjoying your encounters, if you want to say it that way. Always stick to the subject. Don't start going to this direction, that direction, and every direction to try to win the argument. Always deal with disagreements as soon as possible. Now, I know some people will say, well, the Bible says to not let the sun go down on your anger, so therefore we're going to resolve this until we finish it. Well, in some cases, actually, I'm not sure that the Bible meant that to be the case. Resolve your anger, yes, but maybe it will take some time to resolve the conflict.
Right.
So that's a different thing. Always decide on a plan, and that's why, again, we have this 10 step to resolving couple conflict. Always decide on a plan.
And so this also will help answer one of the questions that somebody asked us earlier. So here are the 10 steps. Number 1, set a time and a place for discussion. So we are going to talk about it. We are going to resolve it. But I think we have to admit that sometimes now is not the right time. What if there are children there? You don't want to deal with the conflict with your children there. What if you're in a hurry to get to an appointment and you only have 5 minutes? Well, you know 5 minutes is not enough to deal with the issue, so it's better to wait. So it's better to calm down, have time to walk away, pray about it, pray that God will give you the words, pray that God will grant resolution, and set a time and a place. Maybe tonight, honey, after the kids are in bed and sleep, can we talk about this? That's what we mean by set a time and a place.
And we talked about that earlier. If you just simply say, let's deal with it later, it doesn't resolve things. And especially for ladies, it actually may hurt more. But if you establish a time and a place, then at least you know we're going to deal with it then.
Number 2, oh, sorry.
Is this a good time to talk? So once he's sleeping, 2 o'clock in the morning, the flashlight on his face, it's probably not going to be the best time. You know, decide on those things before you really go to bed.
Number 2 is very important, and this again, this is a question that somebody else referred to. One of your questions said, you know, whenever we deal with issues, it's hard not to bring up the past. Well, look what number 2 says. You're going to define the problem or the issue. Because if you don't decide on what it actually is that you're trying to solve, you're not going to solve anything. If I come with a list of 10 things and 10 issues, none of them are going to get solved. So you're going to decide what is the issue that we're going to agree on together, one issue that we're working on to solve.
Now this is an important step 2. Step 3 is to let's talk about how each of you contribute to the problem. Because it is not possible that we could say, it wasn't my fault, I had nothing to do with it, it's your fault. Now, someone would say to me, Pastor, my husband said this and this and that, and the other, and I didn't say anything. Well, that was your contribution. Because remember, good, healthy communication would be paraphrase, listen to what they're saying, listen for the feelings, express what you heard them say. So if you said nothing, you left them completely confused. That was your participation, your contribution to the problem.
Let's go back to your question that you had earlier about your friend whose husband is committing adultery numerous times. Okay, so number 3 for there, the first thought may be, well, she's not guilty of doing anything. He's the one that's having the adulterous affair. What is she doing? Well, this is what she could say. She could say, I have been guilty by allowing this to continue. I have been guilty by not holding you accountable before God and before the marriage vow that you made to me. So you see, even there, it's easy to say, I'm not guilty, that is all his fault. But when we don't hold other people accountable, then we also have to share part of that responsibility. So that's just an example that I was thinking of there.
So in any conflict, and that's the point here, in any conflict, both of us contribute. So let's list how each of us contribute to the problem. I like this one, so I want to have to share with you. She said, Blondie says, wasn't that a silly argument we had last night? So Dagwood says, it sure was, but this morning I'm willing to admit that I was wrong. And so she says, oh good, then it's all settled. I'm willing to admit you were wrong too. Well, that's not the way to solve problems. Again, we want to find out what contribution each of us has to the problem, as opposed to saying, it was my problem, and then your wife saying, that's right, it was your problem. That's not the way to solve it. So then we want to look at number 4, list past attempts to resolve the issue that were not successful. So let's think about this. We've obviously been dealing with this problem time and time again. So let's list the things that we have done in the past, but which obviously have not worked. Because if we have tried numbers 1, 2, and 3, and they haven't worked, why would we do it again? I think it was Einstein who said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So why would we be insane enough to continue trying the same thing which hasn't worked? Let's not try those.
So the 5th, we have a Bible verse here. When pride comes, then comes shame, but with the humble is wisdom. So there again, we need to admit what hasn't worked in the
So
past.
therefore, be humble enough to admit that's right.
Number 5, the next step. You know what the issue is now. You know what has not worked in the past. So this step, you're going to just brainstorm as many things as you can think of that may be possibilities. You're not going to evaluate any of them. You're just going to list. You're going to call out things, your spouse is going to call out things, and you're just going to list them. You're not going to say, well, that's stupid, that won't work. No evaluations, no judgments on any of the things. Just list as many as you can. Just keep them coming. That's what brainstorming is all about, right? Not evaluation.
Because if you stop to evaluate them, then the brain stops thinking of solutions. For instance, we had a couple that I was working with who were facing some financial difficulties. So when we came to this step, I said, well, list all the possible solutions to your financial difficulties. How do you think you could resolve them? And so he said, well, I could maybe get a part-time job in addition to the full-time job that I have. And so he wrote that down, and she said, I could do the same thing. She put down a part-time job. And he said, well, maybe we could sell the house and buy a smaller house. Buy a smaller house. Then she said, maybe we could sell one of the cars. Sell one of the cars. He said, well, maybe we could sell the kids. Sell the kids. I mean, just listed all kinds of things. And I know she looked at him and I said, don't say anything, just keep writing. Once they had, I don't remember, 15, 16, 17 items, then we went to the next step, which is discuss and evaluate these possible solutions. So then they started going down the list again, and he said, okay, so I could get a part-time job, and she said, well, I mean, that would be good, but then we would never see you. And the point of being a family is to be able to spend time together as a family, and the kids need to have a father at home, and all those things, so they scratched it up. And she said, you know, I could get a part-time job, and he said the same thing, no, we wouldn't be a family like that, so I don't think there'll be solutions, so they scratched it up. He said, you know, we could sell the house and get a smaller house, and they said, you know, our family's growing, but, you know, let's just set that aside for now, because that's a possibility. What about selling one of the cars? And she said, well, you know, you work on that side of town, I work on that side of town, so it means we would have to leave the house early for you to drop me off first, then you have to drive to work and go to work, and then in the evening, the same thing, you have to drive across town to pick me up, and then it's going to mess up everything, and then if we have an emergency, if the car breaks down and the kids need to go different places, no, that's not going to work. Scratch them off. Now, how about selling the kids? Now nobody's going to want to buy those kids, so they scratch that up. So they went down the list and came up with three possible solutions. One of them being sell the house and buy a smaller house. And so that's what it comes to. And step number 6 is to, again, discuss and evaluate them and narrow the list down to about 3 to 5. And then number 7, agree then on one solution to try. So now you've narrowed down the 15 or 17 item list to only 5 really possible solutions. Let's try one of those. Let's try number 3. And that's the next step.
And then number 8, remember step number 3 was to discuss how each of us were a part of the problem. So I'm going to discuss what I have done to contribute to this ongoing problem. He's going to discuss what he has done. But look at number 8. Because we both have been part of the problem, we now are going to do what we need to do to be part of the solution. See, I have to realize that in order for resolution to come, I have a part to play. And if I don't play a part, there may never be resolution. And so step number 8 is so important because you're both taking ownership of the problem. It belongs to both of you. So this is what I'm going to do to be part of the solution, and then Claudio is going to state what his commitment is to be part of the solution.
So it's not fair to say, I have nothing to do with this problem, it's your problem. And neither is it fair to say, I'm not going to do anything to resolve it, you do it. You know, it's our problem, and we're both going to resolve it. This is my part of my contribution to the problem. This is my contribution to the solution. So we both are going to work on this. You know, we can't choose number 3 and then say, okay, do it. No, you're going to do 1, and I'm going to do 1. That's what number 8 has to do with. And then comes to number 9, which is to set up another meeting to discuss your progress. All right, so let's try this for the next month, or the next 3 months, or the next 6 months. And then, you know, on such and such a date, at such and such a time, we're going to sit down again and look to see what's happened. If it hasn't been resolved, don't just ignore it or forget it. We may have to go through the process again and either get one of the other solutions or go through the process again to come up with new solutions. But let's evaluate it at some point in time.
And the last step, number 10, you're going to reward each other. If I've done my part, if I've done what I committed to do, and he's done what he's committed to do, then we need to recognize that. It may not have worked. We may need to go back and brainstorm some more. But at the very least, we need to recognize and affirm each other for doing what we said we would do.
All right. It's 20 till 4. We're going to take a 10-minute break until 10 till 4. And then we will finish things up and get you out of here by 5, which is what was required. So take a break, get a drink, go to the restroom, and we'll finish up starting at 10 till 4.